I just realized I think there are like 3 authors named Eleanor in this pile. Maybe Eleanor is just the name for a contemporary fiction author. Anyway. Hello world, Millie Florence here. I am the teen author of books for middle graders, and today we are going to be talking about some of the best contemporary fiction for middle graders and other kids of that general age. I made another video similar to this about fantasy books, and you guys seem to really enjoy it. So I thought I would make another in another genre, and maybe we can kind of explore all the different genres and I can have different recommendation lists. As I said before, this video is about contemporary fiction. Contemporary basically means stories that take place in the real world and deal with real life problems and adventures. So there are lots of stories that take place in the real world but aren't contemporary because they deal with more either magical or far-fetched problems, and those would be either in the adventure genre or the urban fantasy genre, and I may do videos about those too. Let me know if you want to see them. My criteria for a good contemporary book is something that is heartwarming, has some good humor, realistic, rich characters, and captures the essence of everyday life in a beautiful way. One of my favorite quotes about writing is, "The job of a writer is to make new things familiar and familiar things new." Now, obviously with fantasy, your job is often to make new things, unexpected, magical things feel familiar and at home to the reader. I feel like the job of contemporary fiction is to take familiar, everyday things and make them feel fresh and new and interesting. So today I hope to show you some books that will do just that. The first book I have for you guys today is Little Pear by Eleanor Frances Lattimore. Oh my word, I love this book so much, guys. This book is about a little boy living in China, not modern China. What time does it take place? I think it takes place like early 1900s, something like that. So it's not modern times, but I still consider it contemporary because that's mostly what it deals with. It was contemporary when it was written, anyway. The book follows Little Pear, a young Chinese boy, in all his mishaps and adventures, whether that is buying his favorite candy or accidentally getting lost on his way to the city and places like that. The whole thing is just absolutely beautiful and well written and really gives you a glimpse into Chinese culture of the time. It's actually fairly short and not that difficult of a read, so if you have a kid who is at a lower reading level, you know, or doesn't want to commit to a longer book, I would definitely recommend this book. If you're a fan of the Ramona books, you will definitely like this book because it is very similar to the Ramona books in the fact that it's just a little kid like getting into everyday mischief, but it makes it seem really interesting and it makes you really empathize with the kid. The next book I have you may have heard of, and it is The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes. This book won a Newbery Honor and it very much deserves it. It is such a good, beautiful book about the effect that our words have on other people and about imagination. It's just a book about kindness, I guess you could say. I don't like books that are preachy, especially if they're books to kids, because kids will 100% see that message and be like, oh, this book is just trying to teach me something. It's not actually trying to be a story or be entertaining. So this book is not at all preachy. And in its lesson of like being kind and anti-bullying, it's not at all. This book was published in 1906, so that's kind of the time frame you're seeing. Again, a lot of these books were written a while ago, but they were contemporary when they were published, so I'm counting them as contemporary. I also feel like a lot of the older contemporary books I enjoy a lot more. These are more timeless, they've stood the test of time. Once again, it's a book taking place in the early 1900s. It's about a girl named Wanda who is very poor, and she has a funny sounding last name, so she gets kind of teased at school about her last name and about the fact that she always wears the same faded dress to school. And one day she decides to tell some of the girls at her school that she actually has 100 dresses at home, she just never wears them. And they start to tease her about this because obviously she doesn't have 100 dresses at home, or at least they don't think so. And it's just about kind of the consequences of that. It's about kindness, it's about forgiveness, and it's just a really, really beautiful book. Alright, the next book I have for you guys you may not have heard of before, and it is The Wheel on the School. Yes, my copy is completely ripped up. I don't know how that happened. It was published in the 1950s, and it's about a schoolhouse of children living in Holland. And they decide one day that they have a mission to bring storks to their little town in Holland. Storks never come to their town. They really want some to come so that they can watch them build a nest and raise chicks. And in towns nearby, people will put wheels on their houses so the storks will come and nest on the wheels. And they decide, okay, so we need to get a wheel and put it on our schoolhouse so that a stork will come and nest on it. And it's all about this group of children's mission to find a wheel. I love this book so much because the characters are really just like rich and vivid. It's about teamwork and dreams, and you learn a lot about Holland, which is a country I feel like there aren't quite as many books about. But it was really, really interesting. It was a very interesting book, it was a very entertaining book, and just a wonderful book in general. Highly recommend. The next book I have is a classic, Bridge to Terabithia. And this is another Newbery Award winner. I love my Newbery Award winners. So I guess if you want more book recommendations, maybe go look at the Newbery Award list, because I have enjoyed a lot of those. But Bridge to Terabithia, very well-known book. You may have seen the movie. The movie is excellent too. If you haven't heard of it, where have you been? It's a really good book. It's beautiful and really sad, and just a lovely, lovely story about a boy named Jess and a girl named Leslie, and they form an unlikely friendship, and they end up teaching each other about kindness and imagination. And they create their own world called Terabithia out in the woods. Just saying that doesn't sound interesting, but if I got to the interesting part, I would basically spoil the whole book. So just trust me when I say you need to read this. A slight warning, there is a little bit of language in this book, so I would recommend it for maybe 12 and up. It's nothing horrible, but just some minor language, so just be aware. Catherine Patterson is a master, and this book is absolutely beautiful. Next book I have, anyone who follows my channel will know about, and probably some of you saw this coming. It is Honey Butter by me. This is my book, my contemporary book, my debut novel, and it was a Reader's Favorite Book Award finalist in the Coming of Age category. And it is about a young girl named Jamie Johnson who collects paint cards. Jamie thinks that the world is pretty boring at the moment because she is stuck in her neighborhood over the summer with what she feels like is nothing to do except constantly rearrange her paint card collection and go to the paint store to collect more paint cards. But then a family moves into the house next door that includes a girl named Lauren Lark, who is much older than Jamie, and Jamie finds her very interesting. The two end up forming an unlikely friendship and going on lots of everyday adventures together and teaching each other lessons about imagination and kindness and family love. Honey Butter is available on Amazon, or if you want to find out more, you can go to my website, millieflorence.com. My next book is The Penderwicks. It is a National Book Award winner. I don't read as many of the National Book Award winners, but this one is very good, and several of Kate DiCamillo's books have won National Book Awards, so that's another award you can check out. So yeah, and anyone who's on this channel knows I love Kate DiCamillo. This book was not written by Kate DiCamillo. This was written by Jeannie Birdsall. The Penderwicks has a fairly large-sized fan base at the moment, and it is a whole series. Nobody hate me, I don't like the rest of the series as much as I like the first book, but the first book is a masterpiece. And the rest of the series is pretty good too, I just don't feel like it's as good as the first book. The Penderwicks is about a family of all daughters and their father who go on a vacation to what they think will just be a summer cottage, but it ends up being a cottage on a huge estate. And adventures ensue. They meet a boy who lives at the estate and they go on all sorts of crazy everyday adventures and their everyday mishaps and mystery, and it is a very fun book and I love the family dynamic of the book so much. Next up we have another book that was written in the 1950s and it is Strawberry Girl by Lois Lenski. I love this book. It was definitely one of my childhood favorites and I can remember my mom reading it aloud to me for the first time. It's about a girl whose family is starting a strawberry farm in Florida in the 1950s. When you hear about like farm books or stories that kind of revolve where the main characters are on a farm, you don't usually hear about farms in Florida, or at least I haven't. So that added a very interesting aspect to this book. So this girl whose family starts a farm, a strawberry farm in Florida, they have another family nearby, neighbors, as neighbors as you can be, you know, in a farm setting, who really doesn't like them. And there's a kind of, ends up being kind of a feud going on between them. But although the parents don't like the other family, the children in the family start to make friends with each other, and as you can imagine, that causes some conflict and some tension. It's about rivalry and kindness and family and forgiveness, and it's a wonderful book. It's another Newbery Award winner, actually, predictably. It's just a lovely book that absolutely radiates Florida and strawberries and summer and all the hardships of starting a farm, and it's really good. Next up we have The Cricket in Times Square. I love this book so much. This book is definitely a comedy contemporary. It is so funny. If you like books about animals, this is definitely for you. It was published in 1960 and it is about several people. It is about a cricket who used to live in Connecticut but accidentally took the train to New York and ends up living in the subway station, and the son of a newspaper stand owner decides to keep him as a pet. The cricket goes on many adventures, both with the boy who he meets and several other animals who live in the subway station, including a mouse named Tucker and Henry Cat. And it is so funny and so heartwarming and lovely, and it's about home and fame and family. It's just a really funny, really lovely book. It's also a shorter book and a fairly easy read, so it's something great to give to a younger reader who is still learning. Last but not least, we have The Saturdays. This is another book that was published around 1940s, 1950s, and it is about the Melody children. I always say Melody instead of Melody, but that's her name. The Melody children who are bored every Saturday and they're tired of being bored, so they decide to start the, let me see if I can get this right, Independent Saturday Afternoon Adventure Club, where they pool their allowance and each week is someone's week to go spend all the allowance and do something interesting and fun. As you can imagine, mishaps and adventures ensue. This is a great book if you love like big family books, similar to, so if you enjoyed the Penderwicks, you would enjoy this book a lot. It is very sweet, very funny, and has that great big family supportive sibling dynamic. That's all the books I have for you guys today, but I hope you enjoyed the selection. All of these books and the links to them on Amazon, where they can be purchased, will be down below in the description. Go check them out. If you have read any of these books before and would like to talk about them, be sure to comment down below because I would love to talk about them too because they are some of my favorite books. If you have any requests for what genre I should tackle next in my book recommendation series, you can also comment that down below and I will look through them. If you want to watch my last video on fantasy book recommendations, you can find that up there. And that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is Millie Florence, signing out.